Hi everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I know the energies have continued to be intense and we haven't gotten a break, and they're going to continue to be intense for a while. But on the upside, the challenges that we're facing with the intensity now are a little bit different than they were before because we did level up, like I talked about in my last video. So still experiencing those challenges, still feeling pushed, but it's a little bit different now, and that's what I want to talk about today. But first, before I get into that, I want to make a quick note of some of the cosmic things that are going on right now that are influencing the intensity that we're currently feeling. There's a lot of things going on, but I'm just going to touch on three main points. So the first one is the full moon in Aries that we just had yesterday. So Aries is a very fiery energy. It's a very masculine energy. There's a lot of intensity just with Aries alone. So that can be passion, that can be anger, these extreme emotions, I would say, very active, very fiery, extreme emotions can come up with Aries, the Aries full moon. And so along with that, if you've had anything that you've been putting off dealing with for like the last 6 months, anything you've been ruminating on, especially in your relationships, that has the potential to come up right now with a vengeance. And that can be positive or negative. That can be this passion that you've had simmering for somebody for a while, but you haven't had the guts to act on it. And so with that full moon in Aries, you get compelled to act on it finally. So that's like the positive side of it. On the other side of it, though, what can happen is if we've been holding a grudge or feeling resentment and we haven't dealt with it, that can come to the surface, and there can be some explosive energy within our relationships that causes disagreements, big fights that then have to be dealt with so that that stuff can come up in the open, get aired out, and we can find ways to resolve it. Or it can even end relationships. If it's been time for a relationship to end and you've been putting it off, that full moon in Aries can really give you that final push that you need to just call it quits, just to end that cycle. So even though it was yesterday, we're still going to be feeling some of those energies for the next couple of weeks until we move into the next new moon. Now, something that plays into that relationship aspect with that full moon in Aries is we also had yesterday a conjunction between Venus and Mars. So Venus being a very feminine energy, Mars being a very masculine energy, and these two planets only meet up about once every other year. And when they meet up, it gives us the opportunity to balance out our masculine and feminine energies. Now, those are the masculine and feminine energies within ourselves, but also those masculine and feminine energies within our relationships with other people. So that also brought a lot of focus to relationships yesterday. It's going to continue to bring a lot of focus to relationships for the next couple of weeks. So be mindful of that. And finally, the last point that I want to touch on is we are getting ready in the next few days for Jupiter to move from the house of Libra into the house of Scorpio. So for the last year, Jupiter's been in the house of Libra, which is very much about balance and very much about relationships and figuring out what we want from relationships and how we are in relationships and what we need from other people, setting those boundaries, balancing things out, coming to compromises, things coming to a head that need to be dealt with within those relationships so that balance can be achieved. So we're moving out of Libra and Jupiter's moving into Scorpio. So Scorpio, like anything else, we have that lighter side of it and we have that shadow side of it. So on the lighter side of it, the very positive aspect of it is if you work hard and you really put your passion into things, this is a great opportunity for you to really manifest what it is that you're wanting in your life. But you really need to be mindful of how these things come to the surface, because the darker side, the shadow side of Scorpio is death and rebirth, because Scorpio is associated with the planet Pluto, which is associated with essentially the god of the underworld. And so we have this opportunity to go through a death and rebirth cycle. So with that is a very strong energy that forces us to deal with karmic cycles that we have not yet completed. So secrets come out in the open. If you've been trying to hide something and you've been successful at it, don't count on being successful at it for a whole lot longer, because Jupiter in Scorpio is going to force the truth out into the open so that it can be dealt with. There's a lot of intensity with Scorpio. Scorpio is a water sign, so we have a lot of emotions that get stirred up, a lot of intense emotions. So again, somewhat like Aries, we can get that passion. So there's a lot of sexual energy with this transit. But we also have those shadow sides, that underworld side that we're dealing with. So that can bring up addictions and negative patterns, self-sabotage, like I said, secrets coming out in the open, opportunities for big blow-ups between people. So be mindful of that. We're heading into that energy. So this is a really good time to clear up any karma, any karmic cycles that you haven't completed that you know are due for completion and you've been putting it off. Really, it's time to deal with it. Okay. So that kind of brings me into what I want to talk about in today's video. So last time we discussed how we just recently leveled up. And in that leveling up, we've been discovering a lot of things about ourselves that we weren't aware of before, things that were really positive. We got some of that past life power returned to us. We really integrated all those aspects of ourselves. And so we're seeing ourselves more clearly. And we're also recognizing the skills and abilities and the raw power that we have. Now, that's great, but because it's been such a long time since we were fully integrated and had complete access to that power, we kind of don't know what to do with it. And so we're trying to move forward, and because we're super excited. We finally have this opportunity to really move forward, and we're trying to, and yet we find ourselves like running into a force field and not completely understanding why. So I want to talk about the patterns that I've noticed that I think are contributing to us still not being able to move forward. So the two things that it links into is, self-worth, self-love, self-acceptance, that sort of thing, and those karmic completions. Those two things have been a thorn in our sides for how long now? Lifetimes, right? So that's still the main thing that's blocking us. It is a consistent theme. So what I'm noticing is that men especially right now are dealing with some karmic cycles that really need to be completed, and they're not like knowing how to complete them. And some women are running into that too, but I'm really noticing that pattern is running very strong in men right now, where you have these old karmic relationships or these just karmic situations, business partners, romantic relationships, family stuff, these patterns that have continued and just recycled themselves. And it's really time, now that we've gone through that integration, for us to just put an end to these cycles. It's time for it to stop, but we're feeling blocked in that. And part of why we're feeling blocked, the reason why we're feeling blocked in that, is tied into the self-love, the self-acceptance, the self-worth aspect. And that part is getting everybody. That is not just specific to men. That is men and women. We are blocking ourselves still by not fully accepting ourselves, by not fully loving ourselves. And I know for those of us who have been working on self-love for a long time, we feel like we love ourselves. Right? I just went through that realization myself last weekend. I kept getting all of these messages from my team that were about self-love and self-acceptance. And I was like, but I do love myself. I have worked years to get to a point where I like myself. Like, I really do. I think I'm a pretty awesome person now. But it finally did click for me. I like myself now. But I was still holding things against myself that I had done in the past, things that I had done to other people that I wasn't proud of, things that other people had done to me that I was still kind of playing that victim consciousness to a degree. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but there was still a little touch of that there. And also, I think what really came with that victim consciousness is not so much feeling anger or resentment or unforgiveness towards the person that had been the catalyst for that pain. It was more that I was holding a grudge against myself for not having been more empowered, for not having stood up for myself, for not having set boundaries where I needed to. And so I was still holding a grudge against myself for that. So those are the ways in which the self-loathing can still be kind of sneaky. It can still get in there and pin us down, because while we've worked really, really hard to love who we are, sometimes we can still get caught up in who we used to be, and that we weren't real fond of who we started out as, who, you know, the things that we did in the past. We can still get kind of hung up on that stuff, and it can make us feel unworthy of moving forward. It can also make us feel very ill-equipped to move forward. So like I said, we've got that power within ourselves that we're now recognizing because we went through that integration. It's this raw power, and there's a lot of it, and our energy field is expanded, and we feel intimidated by it, because we don't know what to do with it. Like, we don't know if we're good enough, or like we don't quite feel worthy of all of this power. We don't know how to direct it. It's been so long since we felt empowered that we don't know what to do with the power that's been returned to us. And what we really want to work towards is stepping into our authority. Authority is not, I don't want it to be taken in the sense that we think of authority in our culture as it stands now, where it's having power over somebody. True authority is not having power over somebody else. True authority is feeling empowered within yourself, and within your life and your relationships. So that's what we want to move towards. But it's real hard for us to move towards that if we're still not fully accepting ourselves and trusting ourselves and loving ourselves. If we can't forgive ourselves for not standing up for ourselves, for hurting other people in the past, that's really going to hold us up, and it makes it impossible for us to truly move forward, because we're going to keep running into that force field over and over again, because it's self-imposed. We have access to all this power now. We have the ability to manifest what it is that we want in our lives. But if we are not forgiving ourselves, if we are not fully trusting ourselves and loving ourselves and accepting completely not only who we are, but who we have been, we are going to continue blocking ourselves. That's just the truth of it. And I want to make note of something that was really meaningful for me when I came to this realization last weekend. And it was actually a quote from my favorite anime. But in the anime, the main character is very socially awkward. She's been very isolated from other people her entire life. And she has this tendency, because she feels vulnerable, to kind of lash out. Like, she meets somebody and she immediately says something mean, and that she feels horrible about it. And so she isolates herself further because she doesn't want to hurt anybody, and she doesn't want to feel embarrassed, and she doesn't want to be scared in those situations. And she's talking to this other person, and they kind of call her on it, and they're like, I know you feel the need to isolate yourself from other people until you're a better person, but the only way that you grow is through relationships, by hurting others and being hurt by them. That is a natural process. And that's not all relationships are. There's a lot of love and positivity, but there are going to be uncomfortable situations where we feel like the bad guy, or we think of somebody else as the bad guy. And there is pain associated with love. It's not pain for the sake of pain. It's not pain because of cruelty. It's growing pains. Those things are necessary for our evolution. And so if we can remember that, and we can accept who we have been, then that allows us to move forward and to feel fully empowered, so that we can stand in our authority, set healthy boundaries from a place of compassion, and really direct our power into manifesting what it is we want for ourselves. Because when we reach that point where we can have full self-acceptance, we also understand that we are equipped to handle that much power. We are responsible enough to handle that much power, and we also understand that we deserve to be able to manifest those things that we want in our lives. Okay, I want to touch really quickly on the karmic cycles. I know this has been hounded on over and over again, and I've hounded on it But fact of the matter is, we still have karmic cycles that need to be completed. So if you have not let go of karmic cycles, that needs to stop. And that ties into the self-acceptance and the self-love too, because a lot of times the reason why we get stuck in these karmic cycles is because of unforgiveness, feelings of guilt, being ashamed of our actions, not feeling like we deserve happiness or love. Those things really block us. And I see that more at this point anyway. I see that more now in men than I do in women. And I think part of it is, you know, there's a lot of anger out there towards the patriarchy. And I get it, because I'm not a real big fan of the patriarchal structure either. I would prefer things to be balanced out. I don't think one gender is better than the other, but there is a lot of anger towards the patriarchy. And a lot of that has been valid. But what happens is you also end up with a lot of very good men who get punished essentially for the patriarchy as a whole. And there's these expectations on men that they have to be providers and they have to take care of other people, and they shouldn't have emotional needs. It's okay for them to have financial needs, to have sexual needs. It's okay for them to have, you know, needs related to their image. That's okay. But to have emotional needs, to have healthy relationships, that's been something that like the attitude kind of becomes, well, if like love is a priority for you as a man, if being nurtured is a priority for you as a man, well, that kind of makes you a pussy. That's the attitude that there is in our society about that. And so men get kind of caught in this trap. They're between a rock and a hard place. So they feel the pressure to be a certain way, be that provider and all of that. But at the same time, they have all of these needs and all of these emotions that they don't feel free to express or to talk about. And so they can easily get trapped in codependent relationships where they feel responsible for the happiness and well-being of others, instead of realizing that everybody is responsible for their own. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work with people. It doesn't mean that you can't have relationships where, you know, you are a provider in one way, but there needs to be balance. And a lot of times there ends up being a very serious imbalance where men feel this immense pressure to take care of everybody else and take care of all of their needs without being able to express their emotions, without being able to express what it is that they need. And yet women have had their own go around with that, where they feel like they have to take care of everybody else. And I get that. I have felt that before, but there is a little bit of a double standard here, because while women are expected to take care of everybody's needs, and we've had to fight that paradigm to be more than our position in the home. Well, we've had to fight that paradigm. It's been okay for us to express our emotions for the most part. At least it has been for the last few decades. Doesn't mean that necessarily anything gets done with that, and that's part of the problem with the patriarchy and why the paradigm needs to shift, because there's no action taken with that, and there is still a stigma associated with expressing your emotions, but women still have more freedom to do that. We may be seen as a little bit weaker for expressing those emotions, but we are still allowed to. Whereas men are flat out told, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stop being a baby, just deal with it. And that creates a really vicious cycle. And so I think that's why we're seeing so many men stuck in these karmic cycles that are continuing and repeating, and it's vicious. And it seems like it's never ending, and it's getting worse. Why is it getting worse? Because the universe is really pushing you to cut ties with the things that no longer serve you, to really acknowledge what it is that you want for yourself, to set the healthy boundaries where you need to stop feeling so responsible for everybody else, especially in terms of like tangible physical things. Stop feeling so responsible for everybody else. That is not necessary. Obviously, I am talking to that group of good men who get stuck in these patterns where they end up with very dependent partners or family members and all of that stuff. And they just end up in codependent relationship after codependent relationship. And their life just slowly deteriorates, and they deteriorate health-wise and all of that because they're so busy taking care of everybody else that they don't even take a moment to look at what they need or look at what's healthy for them. Those are the guys that I'm talking about. If you are a deadbeat, I am not talking to you, and you know who you are, whether you want to admit it or not. And chances are you're not watching this video if you are. So, these karmic completions, they really need to, we really need to end these karmic cycles that are destructive, because they are not just destructive for you, they're destructive to the people around you. Even if you feel like you are taking care of everybody else and doing what's making them happy, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing what's best for them, because when you get into those codependent dynamics and you're just providing for all of their needs and taking care of other people, what happens is that they become increasingly more dependent. They become disempowered themselves, increasingly more so. And so it feeds this cycle where neither of you is really growing. Neither of you is really expanding. You're stuck in just this nasty, mucky energy and emotions, and there's no forward movement. There's no growth. We need to stop being held back by these relationships that don't serve us. That can be romantic, it can be family, it can be business, it can be friends, it can be anything. It can even be not necessarily related to people, but karmic patterns that we have with ourselves that's self-sabotaging, the things that we do that keep us stuck in the same place. All of that is linked in to the self-worth, the self-acceptance, and the self-love. We need to have those things as a solid foundation so that we can build our life, manifest what we want for ourselves, and really get forward movement, not only for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others. Because let me tell you, if you're keeping yourself stuck in one spot, you are not helping anyone, and you certainly are not helping yourself. We need to get those stagnant waters moving around and get moving forward, clean things out, cut ties where we need to, start manifesting what we want for ourselves, what we know in our hearts, in our heart of hearts, what we know we deserve to manifest for ourselves, setting the example of empowerment too for other people. So even if you feel like staying in these karmic cycles is benefiting somebody, really take a bigger look at it, because the truth is it's not actually benefiting anyone. It's just not in any ways that are really meaningful for actual growth and evolution of their soul. It's really time for us to move forward with our lives, to move forward with our purpose and our spiritual path. And that can only happen when we stop holding ourselves back. Stop sabotaging yourself. Get out of the codependent relationships. Cut ties to self-sabotaging patterns. Really start accepting who you are and who you have been. Forgive yourself. Forgive other people. It is time to stop shortchanging ourselves. And I am just as bad about this as anybody else is. I am not pointing the finger and saying that, I am clean of this, because I am not. I've been dealing the last couple of weeks with a lot of this energy of not feeling like I'm worthy or feeling like I can't stand up for myself. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, I had a client that really triggered me because it reminded me of a male in my family who has never been like, well, he did eventually get to a point where he was directly insulting me and I had to cut off contact with him. But for most of my life being around him, he was never directly insulting. It was always sideways comments and jokes at my expense and always borderline. And it made me feel so like antsy and uncomfortable. And I was always trying to prove myself to him instead of just being like, I don't need to respond to this because I'm cool with me. I was never able to do that. And so this client triggered me by doing pretty much the exact same thing. He kept comparing me to another massage therapist that he had. And I'm a deep tissue therapist, but he kept mentioning about how it was the lightest massage he'd ever had, stuff like that. And instead of just being like, okay, well then I'm just not the right therapist for you, I felt really triggered, and like I found myself making excuses for myself, and I found that I was trying to go even deeper on this guy. And you know what I ended up doing? I ended up actually straining a muscle in my hand, and so now my hand hurts whenever I try to do massage. So it was really unproductive, but it showed me that I still obviously have a pattern that's repeating, where I am not feeling empowered, where I'm not standing in my authority. And it really made it blatantly clear that while I have access to this power now, and I understand that power, there's still a part of me that's felt like I wasn't strong enough or good enough or whatever to stand in my authority, when what I really should have done was just be, okay, like, then I'm just not the right therapist for you. We need to find you a better fit, which I did, but I took it really hard and I took it very personally. And so that's what I'm trying to move past, is to stop judging myself based on how others view me, and to stop trying so hard to please other people when it's detrimental to me, to stand up for myself. That's something that apparently I still have a hard time doing. So I'm working on it right alongside you guys. We're all dealing with this, because this is a consistent theme with human beings, is these issues with self-acceptance and self-worth. Even your most hardcore narcissist, their narcissism stems from issues with self-love. So this is something that people, human beings, just have issues with, but we're really being pushed to deal with those things now, because it's time for us to move forward in our mission, in our purpose, to really step it up, because we leveled up, we did a lot of work, we got rewarded, and now we need to learn what to do with the reward that we got. So that's what we need to focus on right now. I want to share one little story with you guys that helps me in these situations when I'm thinking about that law of attractions, and how, like, we need to really be empowered in order to actually manifest what it is that we want for ourselves. So when I was like 20, my adoptive father, he came up to me one day and he goes, you know, I notice whenever you're walking around, you're really slouched over and you're always looking at the floor, and you should really stop doing that. Like, you should hold yourself up and look up when you're walking, because it's really not attractive the way that you carry yourself. And, you know, I took it really personally for a while, but then it slowly dawned on me what he actually meant. It was not that I am an unattractive person. He wasn't picking at me. My adoptive dad, is the most kind, wonderful, amazing, sentimental human being I think I've ever known in my life. And I absolutely adore him. And he's always been super amazing to me. So it wasn't that he was picking at me. It was that he was trying to teach me a lesson in the fact that the way that we present ourselves, the way we carry ourselves, has a lot to do with how our environment interacts with us. So when I was slouching and looking down everywhere I walked and all of that, I was not in an empowered place. I was attracting negative things. I was attracting treatment from others that was not great. I was attracting, negative situations in general. Whereas if I would have carried myself better and carried myself with more confidence, that would have completely shifted the sorts of things that I was manifesting. Because everything we think, everything we do, every minute detail about the way we move through our lives influences the things that we manifest for ourselves. So keep that in mind too. If you're feeling blocked in your manifestation because you're being held back by that lack of self-love, by those karmic cycles, by guilt, shame, all of that stuff, that's going to come to the surface and present in the way that you carry yourself through the world. And that's going to impact the sorts of things you manifest for yourself. That's the law of attractions. That's just how it works. Like, it attracts like. So this is another reason why it's really important for us to focus in on that self-love and that self-acceptance, because it's time for us to really, really attract those good, wonderful, amazing things into our lives. But we can't do that if we are not empowered, if we are not in our authority. And again, authority is not power over another person. It's not like rigid control over a situation. Authority is being empowered within yourself, your life, and your relationships. Okay, so that's what we're focusing in on. All right, I did do a card reading, so we will get into that now. Just give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. Let's do the card reading. I'm going to try to power through it because we ended up with a lot of cards this time. So the first card that we got was the Serpent of Fire. So this is talking about that leveling up process that we just went through, because the Serpent of Fire is all about how our ability to manifest has really increased. So we have way more power to work with than we did before, and we can't afford to judge our capabilities based on how we were, because we have shifted significantly now. So we have a greater ability to manifest positive things, but we need to be careful because we also have a greater ability to manifest things that we don't want or that aren't great for other people as well. So be mindful of that, because it's kind of like you get a car with more horsepower, considerably more horsepower than you had before, and you're having to kind of learn all over again how to drive because you're dealing with a lot more power. So you have to be more careful. You have to be more mindful until you get used to it. So that's what we're going through since we leveled up. We have more power to work with, and we have to be discerning. Because we got, again, I think we got this one last time too, Sound the Fierce Flute, which is all about discernment. So we need to be discerning about what we're putting our power towards, what we're focusing in on, how we're honing in our authority in situations in our lives so that they'll be to the highest good for all involved. And we're still kind of sorting out and learning to recognize the divinity within us. So we are more empowered now. We did integrate, so we are starting to recognize the divinity within us, but that's still a process. We are integrated, but we're having to still kind of sort things out and feel things out. And that's another reason why we're kind of feeling held back, because we're realizing who we actually are in essence. We're a little intimidated by it. And so again, we keep running into that force field because we haven't fully realized who we are. So that's something that we're still going through too. And along with that, Spin of the Silken Thread Divine, which again, I think we got last time as well, or possibly the time before that. So this is about those like karmic completions and like clearing out all of the stuff that's not associated with being empowered, with being in our authority. So we go through all these experiences and we have all of these challenges come up because we are creating something beautiful. We're going through all of this darkness and all of this negativity so that we can learn and gain that wisdom and that knowledge, and we can really grow. And so we can get to this place where we've got all this background, like we've done all the groundwork, and so now what we're doing is we're refining. We had all this raw material. We've got all this raw power. Now we're learning to refine it and just pull out that silken thread from all of the gunk and the chaos. We're just pulling out that silken thread so that we can weave our future from a better place. And the Queen of Heaven is all about standing in our authority. It really is. And again, like I said, authority is not power over another person. I know I keep saying this, but it's important to know the difference. A lot of times in our society, we think of authority as in authoritarian figures, tossing around their power over other people. And that is so not what we're talking about here. We're talking about being empowered enough to love ourselves, to treat everyone, including ourselves, with compassion, set healthy boundaries, create healthy relationships, to move forward in ways that is for the highest good for ourselves and for everyone and everything around us. That's what it is to be in our authority. So again, with the Queen of Heaven, we're really being pushed to stand into our authority. And Shining Lotus ties into the fact that we've still been kind of hiding. We have all of this beauty within us. We have all of these amazing skills and talents and gifts that we've cultivated, not just in this lifetime, but over multiple lifetimes, that have enhanced our soul essence as it was before we lived any lifetimes. But because we're still feeling timid, because we're still harboring some unforgiveness towards ourselves, still feeling some guilt and shame and all of those things that take away from our capacity to love ourselves, we're still hiding our light. And it is so time for us to shine our light out into the world, because that's how we serve others. We don't serve others by keeping ourselves stuck and keeping them stuck in stagnant waters. We serve by shining our light out into the world so that everyone can see to move forward. So we're not just stumbling around in the dark, okay? This one ties into those karmic completions. Proper burial for freedom. Okay, this is not about being cruel and just like breaking ties and being a jerk about it because it's time for you to move on. That's not what it's about. It's about setting others free and setting ourselves free from these karmic contracts that are due for completion. We're not benefiting from them anymore. The other person isn't benefiting from them anymore. It's bittersweet to say goodbye. It's bittersweet to say goodbye to a person, to an era of our lives, to a place that's been meaningful for us. It's painful. It's not a comfortable process. There is some heartbreak and heartache attached to that for everybody involved. But if the situation isn't benefiting anybody anymore, it's time to set everyone free so that everyone can move forward into a better state, into a more empowered place in their lives, to move forward with their own path. Not everybody is meant to stay in our lives forever. Some people do, and that is wonderful. But some people, over time, the paths diverge and we go in different directions, and that's okay. That's what this karmic completions is really trying to push through, is that this is not a horrible thing. This is a very positive thing. It's uncomfortable at first. There is heartache and tears a lot of times associated with that. But it's ultimately very beneficial for everybody involved. So we need to just finally say the goodbyes that we need to so that everyone can move forward. And that's being married again in Amaryllis Lute, which I'm pretty sure we also got last time or the time before, which is all about how we're needing to flow with the changes. Change is coming. We're going through change right now. We're transitioning. It's a metamorphosis that we're going through. And that was really intensified when we leveled up. We got a power boost there. And so we're realizing that there are a lot of things that don't resonate with us anymore. They're not in alignment with who we are and what we're trying to accomplish anymore. And so those things we need to let those things float on down the river, go their own way. That's something that we need to allow to have happen, no matter how important that something was to you during a phase of your life, or even if it was for decades. No matter how important it once was, if it's no longer in alignment with who you are and where you're headed, then it's time to let it go. It's not about being mean. It's just about realizing that it's just not resonating right anymore, that it's time for both of you to feel free to move forward on your own path, okay? So what we're also getting, our teams are really telling us to seek out some power words or names or mantras. This card is very much associated with power names. So the first time I started pulling this card for myself, like it came up and came up and came up, and I was like, I don't know what to make of this, because the only other thing in the description talked about how our words have increasingly more power than they did before. So like the serpent of fire, being more careful with the things that we manifest, because our words have more power than they used to. But the bulk of the description for that card is talking about names or phrases or words that help us feel empowered, help us to recognize more of who we really are. And so when I kept pulling that card, I started getting frustrated. I was actually starting to get angry because I don't know what that means. So I finally was like, okay, fine. If this has some meaning, would y'all please tell me what it means? Because I'm sick of getting this card. And literally, like the next night or the night of that I asked that question, I had a dream. And in the dream, I received the word, right before I woke up, I received the word senshi. And I had no idea what that meant, but it was so clear and so vivid, and it happened right before I woke up that I was like, I'm gonna look that up. And it's a Japanese word for warrior. So once I started looking into that more and I started realizing, okay, like my team is trying to tell me, my higher self is trying to tell me that that is who I am, that I am a spiritual warrior. Not long after that, I also received a name for my boyfriend. So ask. The teams are telling you that in order to really step into your power and your authority, you need to understand more of who you actually are in essence, what your mission pertains to, things like that. You need these specific words, names, mantras to really help you in a tangible way to understand where you're at and where you're headed and how to be more in your authority. So go into meditation or pray or just be really observant. Let your team know that you are ready to receive whatever that name or phrase or mantra or word is. And then just wait. Just wait for it to come, because it will. But that's an important thing for us to know right now. That's what our teams are telling us. That's really crucial for us to know about ourselves. And we also get the many hands of the goddess. So this card is telling us that with all of this raw power that we have and all of this new energy that we're in and trying to stabilize and all of the things that we're now feeling motivated to do, we can start feeling really overwhelmed. And that can kind of keep us stuck too, because it's like, I'm still stabilizing this energy and I want to do this and this and this, and I'm really motivated to do it. But now I'm overwhelmed because there's not enough hours in the day and I don't have enough like personal energy for it. No matter how motivated and energized or bunny I am, I still just, I can't do everything over, like 5 minutes. So the many hands of the goddess is basically saying, it's our team saying to us, just be. We will let you know what you need to focus on at any given time. So just be. You'll be able to accomplish all of it. You do have more power now. You did level up. Your energy field is bigger. You have more capacity to manifest. You have more capacity to do the things that you've always wanted to do. Don't feel like you have to do it all at once. Just do one thing at a time, and we'll guide you, is what they're saying. We will guide you in what you need to do from day to day. So take a breather and don't get stressed out about all of the stuff that you feel like you have to do or that you want to do. Take it easy. You're still like getting used to this new energy. Like, they're really happy that we feel so enthusiastic, but at the same time, they don't want us to short ourselves out. So if you're feeling really overwhelmed by everything, just take a breather, let your team know that you're receptive to their guidance, and then just focus on the things that you feel are priorities. Focus on one thing at a time. You don't have to do it all at once. And overall, the energy that we've got right now is the Mother of Life, which is a beautiful card because we are really birthing a new era of our lives. We're also birthing a new paradigm. Like, people are spiritually awakening at a rapid pace. It's incredible if you actually look at it. People are waking up to the fact that the system no longer works. The old paradigm is dying. It's time for a new one. So we're trying to figure out how to do that. And that's what the Mother of Life is all about. It is about a new era for ourselves. It's about a new era for our society, for the world. This is a really new start. And I know we hear that a lot in the spiritual community, but I'm not talking about like a tiny start. I'm talking about like a really, really significant fresh start. We hit the reset button. We restarted the entire system. We're booting back up, and we have more power now than we had before. It's like we've got like 4 external hard drives. It's insane. So with that mother of life, be mindful though that as a mother, there are birthing pains. So it's not all going to be rosy and wonderful. All the chaos that we see in our lives and in the world at large, that is a sign of that massive paradigm shift. Those are birthing pains. We are birthing a new paradigm, a new way of life, a new era into existence. So be patient with that. Know that it's not always going to be fun or pleasant or, wonderful in a noticeable way. It is overall a very positive energy. It's a very beautiful energy, but there is darkness that comes with it, because in order to get to that place of light, we do have to deal with the shadows and the darkness. So pulled some medicine cards too to give us more of an idea of what we can specifically focus on to help us out here. The first card that we get is Eagle. Eagle is associated with spirit, source energy, God, whatever you want to call it. So your team is telling you, our teams are telling us, to really tune into spirit, listen to the messages that we're receiving, pay attention, trust ourselves, trust our teams, trust source energy, just trust that everything is going to divine plan and divine right time and divine right order. And I know that can be hard to do when everything looks like it's crashing down and chaotic. It can be hard to even believe there is a God at all, but everything is cyclical. Okay, and I know that some of these things that are happening, like the Las Vegas shooting and stuff like that, it is tragic and it is awful and it is terrible, and I am not condoning violence. I'm not trying to say that that's not important, because it is, but pay attention and listen to your higher guidance, either from your higher self, God, source energy, your team, whatever the case may be, because while all of these things are very tragic, it's a new paradigm is being born. So contribute to that, because the more that we contribute light, the less darkness there will be. The more we step into our empowerment, step into our authority, the more peace there will be, the more compassion there will be. Every person makes a difference. It's that butterfly effect. So instead of getting wrapped up in all of the fear mongering and the anger and all of that stuff, focus on the love, the peace, the compassion. I know that makes me sound airy-fairy or hippie or whatever you want to call it, but it is truth. It is still important, because if we all focused on that a little bit more and moved away from all the hate and the fear and the anger, we would not have all of these acts of violence. We would have more compassion. We would have a much better world than we have right now. So focus on those things. Connect to source. Connect to your team. Connect to your higher self. Connect to those things that are high vibrational. Do not connect to those lower vibrational themes and all of the chaos and the fear and everything that's going on in the world right now, because you will just, law of attractions, you will just create more of whatever it is that you're focusing on. So focus on the love, focus on the peace, focus on the positivity, and you will create more of that in the world around you. So the next card that we got is Dragonfly reversed. Okay, Dragonfly is all about illusion. So in the story in the medicine card book, they talk about how Dragonfly was at one time actually a dragon, and he made a wager with Coyote, who is like the self-sabotager, the trickster, stuff like that. And Coyote basically dared him to shapeshift into this dragonfly form. And so Dragonfly did, and he got stuck that way. So he allowed his power to be taken away from him. And so he appears as a dragonfly, but he is still a dragon, but he can't get out of that form. And so what we're being told with this card being in reverse is that we have been stuck in this illusion. We've been stuck in the illusion that everything is going to hell in a handbasket and everything is getting continually worse and it's never going to get any better. We've been stuck in the illusion on a more personal level that we're responsible for the happiness of other human beings, that we are responsible for their well-being. We've been stuck in the idea that we don't deserve love, that we are not worthy, that we are not capable. All of these things are illusions. We've even been stuck in the illusion of time. Time is not a thing. If you actually look at quantum mechanics and string theory and all of that stuff, you discover that even time is not really a thing. It is an illusion. We have been stuck in illusions for a very long time, to the tune of thousands of years. It's time for us to step out of the illusions now. And that's partly what Source, Spirit, Eagle is telling us. It's giving us clues about what's true and what's illusionary. So use your discernment and pay attention there. The next card that we get is Hummingbird, which is one of my absolute favorite cards in the deck, if I'm perfectly honest. Hummingbird is all about joy and beauty. And so when we get that card, it's telling us to really choose those higher timelines, choose the higher vibrational energy, choose joy, choose love and beauty and peace, and expect good things to happen and manifest good things in your life, because you can, especially now. You have more power to work with. Hone it, get into your authority. Do this stuff so that you can bring more joy into your life and bring more joy into the lives of others in ways that are healthy, not enabling ways, no codependency. I'm talking about actually creating these wonderful experiences for everybody, where everybody gets to grow as individuals and as a collective. So Hummingbird is telling us to really focus on the positives, especially joy and beauty. Really focus on those two things. And beauty, I'm not talking about in the vain way. I'm talking about the beauty in everything around you, the little miracles all around you. Like nature in and of itself is a miracle, that humans are a miracle. Like seriously, if you actually think about our structure and our anatomy and everything, and the way everything works, the way our minds work, it's crazy. These are miraculous things. So focus on those things. Pay attention. Rewire your neural pathways to go in positive directions. And the last medicine card that we get is Jaguar. And Jaguar is all about integrity. Maintain your integrity. And that is really important with Jupiter going into Scorpio, because if you are not behaving with integrity, if you are not conducting your life with integrity and being honest and being upstanding, if you're not doing that, it's going to blow up in your face when Jupiter moves into Scorpio, because all your secrets are going to be exposed. Everything's going to come to the surface and you'll have to deal with it in not so nice ways. So if you have some unfinished business, if you have something you've been hiding, it's time for you to bring that out in the open now in ways that are a little bit calmer, instead of having it thrown out there for everybody to see. You don't want to get thrown to the wolves, okay? And if you have been acting with integrity, keep it up. That's perfect. That's what Jaguar is telling us. It's really important for us to maintain our integrity right now. And that allows us to set the example for other people too, which is also really important. We are really setting the example for others, all right? Okay, so then I pulled a few tarot cards for us, but I split them up into the feminine and the masculine energies, because while there's definitely similarities between what we're going through, there is that little bit of a difference there, because men are dealing with more of the karmic stuff. And I also separated it out because we had that conjunction of Venus and Mars, so getting that opportunity to balance out the masculine and feminine. So I wanted to give an idea of what's going on both sides so we could really balance it out. And keep in mind, everybody has masculine and feminine energies within them, so all the cards will pertain to you, but pay particular attention to the cards that are associated with whatever gender it is that you identify with. So we're going to start with the cards for the feminine. All right, so the first card that we get is there we go, 10 of Cups. So the 10 of Cups is associated with like domestic bliss and harmony and stuff like that. And it's a wonderful card, but the impression that I got with the 10 of Cups in this is that women, we're going through this paradigm shift. And we've been going through it for a few decades, but it's really starting to amplify now as women are truly stepping into their power. Not angry feminists stepping into their power, which was not really empowered at all, but genuinely stepping into their feminine power. And with that paradigm shift, we're letting go of the way that we perceived our role in the world, in our relationships, in our family dynamics, in the home. It's not saying, you know, I'm never going to be a housewife or anything like that. It's not going to extremes, but what it is we've had these ideas of what our role was, and those are starting to shift. As we become more empowered, we're starting to see ourselves more clearly and see that the role that we're playing can change and it can be shifted in positive directions, and there's more fluidity there and you can work with it more. In a more empowered state, there's more that you can do. So the next card that we got goes with that is the death card. There we go. And death is all about transformation, okay? People get scared when they see the death card, but it's actually a very positive card because something is dying so that there can be rebirth, all right? So the old way of perceiving our role in the world, the way that we used to view femininity and our own femininity, is changing and shifting in really positive directions because those old disempowering belief systems, that old paradigm, is dying so that we can transform. And where that's taking us is the come on, there we go, the Queen of Cups. So over time, the goal for us would be to be completely balanced between all of the queen energies. But the Queen of Cups is, we're really getting a fresh view of what it means to be in our emotions. So we're not downplaying our emotions. We're not being melodramatic with our emotions either. We're becoming really balanced in the way that we feel and in the way that we provide love to ourselves and provide love to others. So cups are all about emotions, all right? And they're very much about love too. So we're really rewiring the way that we love ourselves, the way we love others, the way we express our emotions, the way we perceive our emotions, and the way that we are perceived by others as the paradigm shifts, showing that, like, women, though we are more in touch with our emotions, that does not make us weak. That's part of the paradigm shift. That ties into the death card. The old paradigm is dying, and the way women were perceived and the way we perceived ourselves in that paradigm, that is dying so that we can shift the way that we're perceived and the way we perceive ourselves. And then we get the Chariot. So this is what we're heading towards. As we become more balanced in those things, we are driving our own chariot. Nobody's going to be driving that for us. We don't have to be dependent on a man or on anybody, really. We can be empowered enough that chariot is ours, and we can take it wherever we want to go. We can just take a jump start in the direction that we want to go in. We can do anything that we want to. We can manifest whatever reality we want for ourselves once we get to that state where there's more balance. But that's what we're moving towards. We're moving towards balance so that we can get in that chariot and we can take off in whatever direction that we want, confident in our abilities to be empowered in our lives and to make empowered choices and have healthy relationships and have success in whatever areas we're wanting to have success in. Whether that's like work related or marriages or being a mother, it doesn't really matter because we're not going to be confined by any rules about what it means to be a woman or what it means to be a man. So when we went through that shift before, where feminists really started rising, it was like shaming women who stayed at home. That's another extreme. What we're working towards is balancing in so that you can manifest whatever success you want for yourself without feeling ashamed, without feeling like you have to make excuses for yourself. Just allowing yourself to be and be contented and happy and confident within yourself because you worked for it and you are working for it. We all are. All right. Okay. So the masculine energies. So the first card that we get is the Magician. So the Magician is all about that concept of like as above, so below. So men have started to kind of wake up to this paradigm shift that's going on. They've started waking up to their spirituality. They've started waking up to the fact that there's a lot of imbalance with the masculine and feminine energies, and they're wanting to kind of correct that. And the ones who have been trying to correct it, they've like overcompensated, and that's how you end up in the codependent relationships. So right now, they're really connecting to source energy, connecting to their higher self, connecting to their team more. They're starting to open up to those things so that they can get a better idea of what actual balance would be, what is actually healthy. They're reframing their role too. And as they get that guidance from the divine, then they'll start anchoring it into reality. As above, so below. As they get all of that insight and that enlightenment into the crown chakra and third eye and all of that stuff, then they'll be able to start anchoring it down into tangible things, tangible situations, tangible relationships. So that's what they're working on right now, is getting that information from the divine so that they can know how to anchor it in. Next we get the Emperor. Okay, so the Emperor is, I would say, essentially considered to be the most powerful male in the tarot deck. I'm sure there are other people who would disagree, but the Emperor in this sense, I'm thinking of it in terms of how they're recalibrating their role in society too. So up to this point, the Emperor sort of person has been almost like authoritarian and domineering, and it's been that kind of energy, that patriarchy, that sort of thing. But now it's shifting, and they're starting to rethink that Emperor energy. And so we're starting to bring more balance into it. So while there's fire and there's authority and there's all of those things, it starts becoming healthier. The expression of it is becoming healthier because they're redefining what it is to be a man. They're redefining what power is for people in general, but as a man. So that Emperor position, it's not dying out, but we're shifting it to have a healthier perspective on what an empowered man is. So they're trying to figure that out, what it means to be in their authority without getting trampled on, without being thought of as weak for recognizing their emotions and spirituality, but still like staying in a position of feeling empowered. They're trying to figure out that balance. The next card that we get is the Devil. So the Devil is excess, okay? And that's what this paradigm has been. It's been really heavily weighted towards men being the ones in power and having all of the authority and making all of the decisions. And so when that paradigm dies, that excessive, that extreme energy is dying out too. So we're cutting our ties to our perception of what reality is, that gender gap, all of that stuff. We're cutting our ties to that, and that's a harder process for men than it is for women, because women, we've been disempowered for so long, we're ready to step up. But men are trying to figure out what this is going to mean for them. They've been in the rulership position for so long, and they've had a monopoly on it, that it's going to be a more uncomfortable shift for a lot of them. And they're really having to like rewire the way their brains work on a lot of things. And they're dealing with a lot of like karmic completions that are associated with that paradigm shift in their personal relationships and their business relationships. So it's an uncomfortable energy for them because they're really having to face the shadow sides of themselves, but they're also dealing with and feeling responsible for, in a lot of ways, the patriarchy as a whole, and for the ways that they've oppressed other people, women, animals, that sort of thing, even men of other races. So there's a lot of karmic completion as a collective for men going on, which ties into that devil energy. So it's on a personal level, but it's also on a collective level. So this is a really difficult shift for them. But the next card that we get is the Six of Swords. So there is progress here. It's a rite of passage for men. as they're coming to these realizations and they're making these shifts and they're seeing that the world around them is changing, that their perceptions are having to change to adapt, that's pushing them into moving forward, moving away from the way things have been, which is not entirely comfortable for them, because they were really like, they were stuck in that. They had it figured out and it made sense, and now things don't make sense anymore. And they're having to leave behind codependent relationships too, with anybody, not just romantic partners, but with any codependent relationships they've had. They're having to move away from those things too, because they're starting to realize that they're not responsible for everybody, and it's not really healthy for them to try to be responsible for everybody. So it's a rite of passage in a lot of ways. They're leaving behind a lot of their old perceptions. And swords are all about the mind, our thoughts, things like that. So with that being the Six of Swords, it's a shift in their perspective, moving away from the old to move forward into the new. But the final card that we get for them is the Universe, or as most people think of it, the World card. So the good thing is that it's going to pay off. All of this hard work, all of the devastation and that devil energy, and just like watching the way they've seen the world, the way they've experienced the world, watching that old paradigm die, and all of the shifts that they have to make to adapt to the paradigm that's coming in, the, you know, bringing more love and compassion and all of those things in, and spirituality being a bigger focus, because that's becoming an increasingly bigger focus for people. So all of that work that they've been doing, that they're still doing, the dark night of the soul, all of the recalibrating, all of the heartbreak, all of that stuff is going to pay off big time, because the world, or the universe, that card is all about completion. Karmic completions too. So that means that it's going to pay off. Stepping away from those karmic situations that aren't serving you and aren't serving the other people anymore, stepping away from those things will bring you a lot of joy, because with the world of the universe, that is a huge reward, because you worked so hard to complete these contracts, these cycles, to start a new era instead of just repeating the same pattern over and over. So all really positive things. Okay, guys? So that's all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. And just a couple of business matters. So I should be still on schedule to launch the business and start taking actual clients by the middle of October still, hopefully by late October at the absolute latest. So be prepared for some readings and stuff on a personal level, because I will soon be taking clients, and I am so looking forward to working with you guys. Until then, take care, and I will see you and talk to you next time. Bye.